Duck was shot right under the ear.
Charlie Ryan, he murdered him.
You've heard the old saying, where gold goes, blood flows.
Victoria Peak is a life and death matter.
$28 billion.
We can call John D. Rockefeller a tramp.
The military tried to steal it, and it was a conspiracy.
We don't recognize anybody's right.
There were a lot of people murdered over this.
We will make sure the world knows the truth.
After Doc's murder, reopening Victoria Peak was left to my grandmother and my aunt and my mother and my uncles, people of really modest means.
We didn't have the vehicles, we didn't have metal detectors, we didn't have the know-how to go out and do the job right.
They organized themselves in the best way possible, went back to the peak, and began again trying to remove the fill from that vertical shaft.
Well, we had a winch, pulled a bucket up. Down there, they'd fill it, and I'd be up on top and dump it.
Babe and the family were excavating the site at a steady pace, but were not able to open it very rapidly. Unbeknownst to my grandmother, White Sands Missile Range near Victoria Peak were planning on expanding the boundaries.
At White Sands in New Mexico, rockets are sent soaring miles above the Earth's surface to discover the secrets of the outer atmosphere.
When the military took over the base in World War II, they were given specific areas where they're allowed to do test bombing. Victoria Peak was not a part of that original land use agreement.
That wasn't even in there, and they just grabbed that little spot.
My grandmother was ordered to evacuate the site. She was escorted by military police and federal marshals. She was assured that she would be able to return to the site as soon as it was convenient and not an interference to national security.
Even though our property was there, we wasn't allowed on what the government took over.
After Babe was evicted from her claim by the military, Babe was staying with our family. And hardly a month that went by that there wasn't some whistleblower bringing her information about what was happening at Victoria Peak. They would drive over and say, by the way, Mrs. Noss, we were working in the motor pool this week and we were servicing a Jeep and we pulled back a tarp and we saw some gold bars. H.L. Moreland was a local rancher who was also a judge. He was very familiar with my grandmother's account of what happened at Victoria Peak. He's just the kind of guy that anybody would like to have on their team.
When we got to the rim, why, we saw the man walking around and we put our binoculars on him.
Yeah, and when they did, the captain was digging at the time, and they got his name because it was on his fatigues.
Quite a bit of preparation for mining, looked like. They were quite surprised to see us.
Somebody is digging on the mountain under the eyes of the military.
The place had been taken over, and we felt that they did not have any legal claim to it.
All of the mining claims were in my grandmother's name.
The people at White Sands Missile Range, they could not mine, they could not dig. It was illegal.
But Babe had the plan.
And Babe decided they'd better go to the state of New Mexico officials and let them know what had happened.
The land still belonged to the state, and anything below ground, any mineral or treasure trove or anything else, did not belong to White Sands Missile Range. So she would call and report any activity to the state land office, and the state land office attorney would then call the commander at White Sands Missile Range.
And I asked him, I said, is there somebody in there digging? I said, they shouldn't be doing that. And he said, no, there is no digging on that peak. And he said, if there are, it's none of your damn business.
I went inside the mountain and I saw evidence. On the wall is Captain Orby Swanner, who said he would leave evidence of an illegal dig, and we found it.
We're in Odessa, Texas, and we're talking with who? What's your name?
My full name is Brooks Arnold Davis. I go by B.A. Davis.
Now, in 1960-61, you were stationed in Utah, is that right?
I was stationed in Tooele Army Depot, Tooele, Utah, yeah. I was called in said I was going to White Sands, New Mexico. Top secret.
They told you it was top secret.
It was all top secret, you know. It was approximately around 12, 15 of us. I believe it was about 2 weapons carriers went in this mountain and everything where all this gold and stuff was. Because it didn't look fresh and nothing looked old, you know, I mean, it didn't look brand new. We towed all them gold bars out of there. Some was long ones, some short ones, but they was all the same, pretty close to the same height from the web.
Did they have a meeting with you after that?
Well, all those was around and everything, you know, and they told us to sample the same thing, you know, you don't tell your friends about it, you keep your mouth shut.
The chain of events seems to start from a central point named Orrin. He had seen the map that Violet had, and that led him to Victoria Peak. It's very likely that he befriended some people and the word got out. And his first domino push in 57 led to Figgy Burlett in 58, which led to the military access in 61 with Orby Swanner, and then eventually to B.A. Davis, which is probably the same operation.
Babe was able to get her attorneys to ask for an injunction to stop the Army's excavation at the peak. The judge in the case ruled that any and all activity at the peak had to cease immediately.
And they went to White Sands and they put a stop to all that.
Victoria Peak is riddled with conspiracies. People at the base involved in it. People potentially in our own group that may have been involved in it. We had this incident on the side of the mountain once. Somebody came to us and wanted to confess that they were part of a group of people to go out there and seek out this gold. Rodney Schinkel, he called and said, we have a story to tell that implicates Orrin. Let's get this guy in the studio and have him give his whole story. And then I had Orrin give his version of it too.
So Rodney, when was the first time you heard about Victoria Peak and who told you about it?
Back in 1981, we met up with this Orrin Swearinger. I guess Orrin had went out and reconned the place.
Now we're going to proceed further down the road to the west.
We went up on sort of the northwest side.
He went on back over here and could feel air blowing out from under some rocks.
He says, it's in here. But we started going through the bushes and pulling back bushes, and we found a hole.
It took about 2 hours to get the rocks out of this hole.
And it was just total amazement. I mean, there were 3 stacks of gold.
It came to an end about 170 feet from the entrance with a shaft that went down further that was filled with rocks, too large to move. And so that was a blind lead.
Let's get back. The stacks were gold bars.
There's no place to go in it. It's blocked.
We just laid them to the side, and the more that you went into the middle, the more pure it got.
No.
The first thing that was said when we walked in, I remember Warren saying, I told you it was here.
I wish I had, but no, I didn't see anything like that, of that nature.
It's like a little kid went to a toy store. You're just totally baffled.
But as far as anything of any value, no.
Agreed not to take anything out of it.
That's true. It's the pact that we had between us. We would not take anything out, but unfortunately, I have nothing.
Between Orrin and Schinkel, who do you think was telling the truth?
Wow. Orrin was a nervous guy who obviously had something to cover up. I believe Rodney Schinkel's version was more accurate. When I confronted Orrin with Rodney's story, Orrin got extremely nervous and started laughing kind of hysterically.
Runs in horror.
Pulled me over to the side and said, "You have to kill this story right now. I cannot afford to have an IRS investigation of my income."
I'm afraid I haven't seen anything of any value.
Yeah. I talked to him not long before he died and tried to get a confession out of him. Come on, Oren, tell me something I don't know about the peak.
Oren, you got anything you want to share or tell us that could help us? He said, no, not really.
But he never did confess at the end to anything. He usually just laughed it off.
Anybody home?
Oren was my friend, but he's also a suspect in the crowd of people who may have taken material from Victoria Peak. But I can't prove that he took gold from the peak either.
Now, what he's asking, Oren, is how much gold did you bring out?
Yeah. A lot in my imagination.
Yeah.
After 6 weeks breaking down larger boulders, here we are inching along. Progress was slow. We were in a section there, and they started hitting it with the pickaxe and popped a little hole where the dirt fell downward. We've never seen that before to date. So it was clear that I could tell that there's something hollow down there. I thought to myself, holy we just got access to the treasure cavern.